Thank you for joining us for another segment of Let's Talk Sherm, Georgia. Today, we're joined by Phyllis G. Hartman, who is the CEO of PGHR Consulting. Phyllis was the facilitator of our third session of Leadership Sherm, Georgia last week, and it was an outstanding discussion. So let's listen in to see what she has to say about that experience and also a little bit about PGHR Consulting. I really truly appreciate your being a part of Leadership Sherm, Georgia. And let me just say at the outset, our members really, based on the feedback that I got afterwards and also during, they really did enjoy the session. They gained
Great.
a lot of valuable information from it. They enjoyed you as a presenter. And I think they walked away with some things that they can actually put to practice where they are in their career development, their leadership development. And I think it'll bode them well going forward as they continue to advance and develop their leadership acumen. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And like I said, I enjoy it, and I learned from them, from their questions. And if somebody hadn't helped me early in my career, I
Right.
wouldn't have done all the things I've done. So it's kind of payback. PGHR Consulting started. Actually, the idea started when I was working in my first HR job as a professional for the Society of Automotive Engineers. And I was the recruiting and training manager. And what your listeners might find interesting is the reason I decided to start my own consulting business is I felt frustrated by the boss I was working for. So I thought, I really love working with different things. I like new projects. I like helping people develop things. And that's when I decided I wanted to do consulting in HR. And by that time, I had worked on getting my certification. I had completed a master's degree in human resources, my undergrad's in education. And so I felt like, well, maybe this is the time to do it. So I quit my job with my husband's support. Thank God. And we just, we tightened our belts a bit. And I started to try and do consulting, and I was struggling a bit in the beginning because I didn't really have a good business plan.
So what kind of organizations do you really work with, and what types of HR consulting do you actually do?
I work with a wide variety of organizations. I've done work in the medical field. I've done work with a lot of dental practices. Dentists don't get any training in business management or HR. And so they need help in that area. I've done work with manufacturing companies because of the manufacturing background, various service industries. I have one client that's a training company. Pretty much the gamut of any kind of business that can use my help. Again, having some experience in some of those areas personally, but HR is kind of HR. Understanding the business is something you can develop if you have a start, and I had a broad enough background. So I do that. In terms of what I do not do any consulting when it comes, or I do very little consulting when it comes to benefits or compensation. Those are not my sweet spots. I know enough to be able to guide my clients in terms of looking at the basics, but I refer them then out to specialists in those areas if it gets very complicated. I do a lot of work with harassment prevention. I actually help companies develop affirmative action plans and do some EEO work. Do some training in terms of training supervisors and managers on hiring practices, interviewing, basic supervisory management, and then policy development and issues that come up. I developed quite a good knowledge of the various supports that the federal government provided after the COVID pandemic hit.
Right.
And so, I went on and I had to learn what I needed to know to guide my clients. So again, I prefer working on projects, working on chunks of information than a lot of long-term relationships.
Well, you certainly got my attention in our presentation on Friday for a number of different reasons. But as we were going through talking about change leadership, change management, we did get into that a good bit. You know, I was just thinking about all of the things that have changed in the last year or so.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to know, what do you think is one of the greatest challenges or possibly opportunities for leaders in today's environment to help transform or help their organizations transform themselves to adjust to all of the changes that are going on? And I know that doesn't really narrow down what changes we're talking about. There have been so many, but changes is something that I think the ability to lead change, I should say, is something that I think should be in a leader's wheelhouse. So what do you have to say about that?
I think that there's, you know, it's a big subject, but I think the issue of how to create an environment, a culture that can connect with all of the employees, connect with everyone that's working for the organization. And it's the challenge there is that every human being is different. And so they have different needs. So helping companies to develop ways to communicate and build trust, that's going to change all the time. I think that's the biggest challenge. But it's also the biggest opportunity, because honestly, if you think about HR and you're an HR professional, that's kind of what it's always been about.
Right.
And, you know, companies that were rigid and were not able to make change, many of them failed during the pandemic because people had to change. They had no choice in order to survive. But I think that many people, including myself sometimes, look at, you know, well, the pandemic's dying down now. We're getting the vaccine. We're all going to go back to normal, and everything will be, you know, we can go back to the way we did things before. And that's not true. We can never do that, but we never should have done that in the first place. You know, I think being empathetic, being sensitive, working really hard to try and make sure you understand how other people gain information and learning and knowledge, so that you can connect with them and you can learn from them.
Can I ask you to give me your top 3 leadership traits or characteristics that you think will stand leaders in good stead in these times?
I think creativity, flexibility, and I think the willingness to always be learning. You know, leaders are not managers. I mean, managers can be leaders, and it's necessary in many cases to have managers, because you need somebody who can organize things and formalize them, and some of that is necessary in any kind of business. But leadership is more about providing the gateway for the people in the organization to make the organization successful. You know, as soon as you start talking about only management without leadership, you're going to limit things, and you're going to see things in one way, and you're going to formalize. And again, you do need some formalization, some policies. But, you know, when I work with my clients and I tell them, you know, well, we have this problem, so we want to develop a policy. I say, well, okay, that's fine. But keep in mind, when you develop that policy, the one thing you should do is, as you look at it, be willing to make exceptions or changes to that policy. You can't legislate people's emotions and their loyalty, their engagement is all tied up with how they feel about the organization. And so you've got to be willing to deal with that. And that's hard and that's messy. And a lot of true managers don't like to do that.
That's so fascinating, because I can really identify with that, because in large part, that's where we are as SHRM Georgia, you know, trying to take a long-term view on how we need to adapt to the changes that have taken place in our environment. And with regard to all of our affiliate chapters, and not to even mention the internal SHRM Georgia leadership team. So as the director of SHRM Georgia, I'm interested in putting a process of change leadership or change management in place that will really net us the results over the long term that I think we really should be striving for, to be more productive, more engaged with our members, able to deliver real value, not only to our SHRM affiliates, but to the community and to the world of HR. It's going to take some hard work, and it's going to take a long-term view. And, it's easy to want to jump in there and get your hands around it, but and manage, as you say, but that's not always what you should be doing, is what I'm hearing you say.
I think you have to balance management with leadership, if you will. It's not that you can't manage things. You have to, you've got to start somewhere. You've got to start with some kind of structure. It's like, when I wrote the first book that I wrote, talked about, never get lost again, navigating your HR career. The idea that you aren't going to get lost again means you develop the skills and the knowledge to adapt. That even though you're going to set a direction and set a goal, you're going to run into those potholes in the road. In Pittsburgh, we know about potholes. Be brave enough to ask questions, to confront issues, and keep going.
Wow, I think that's excellent advice. And I think that's a good point to leave on. Phyllis, I could really just sit here and talk with you all day, but that might not necessarily be fruitful for the rest of us. But I think it would be a great conversation. And I hope that we can continue having conversations as we move forward in the future. I really invite you to draw close to SHRM Georgia. There's an opportunity for you to kind of help us get through this change management process. Again, we need all the help that we can get. And I really do, once again, appreciate your being a part of Leadership SHRM Georgia. It has made a tremendous impact on the program, and I can't thank you enough for that. So if we can ever help you at SHRM Georgia for any purpose whatsoever, then please feel free to reach out to us.
Thanks, Curtis. I appreciate it. And it's been a pleasure, and I would be glad to stay in touch and be supportive of the changes that you're trying to make. I think you're going the right direction.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Brave.
Yes, absolutely. And I wish you the best, you and your husband, and with long life, shall he satisfy you and show you good things. So take care, Phyllis.
Thank you. You take care, Curtis.
All right.